Possibly winding down at the end of the day, but actually it's high energy because I have got Andrew Seow, who is my favorite Admon person, bar none, from Tripledot. First of all, great to see you, Andrew.
Great to see you too, Peggy. And, thank you very much. For people who might not know, Peggy on one of the LinkedIn posts actually offered the ticket. If not, I wouldn't be in the venue at the moment. So, it's a great pleasure to be back, and all because of Peggy.
That's lovely. That is so wonderful. And it was great getting you in, right? A little bit of connection, but when I look about connections, you're connected as well, Andrew. And I've been thinking about you because since our last podcast on my mobile groove, now this is Pocket Gamer, but the hacks are getting very imaginative. The stuff I'm hearing at the show for Admon. And I thought, you are the man who had some hacks that were borderline in 2024, let's say. What are you excited about in 2025? There are opportunities. I mean, there is reason to believe that it's a very optimistic feeling here.
Yeah, look, I think there are so many things that we haven't really yet uncovered, right? So if we think about the picture that we're talking about, regarding CPMs, I think there is going to be an opportunity for us to try and make the auctions that we run in mediation platforms, whether that's Max, whether that's Level Play, to try and make them more competitive, right? So that, you can bring CPMs up, you can bring prices up. And I think that's always good for us. On the other side, I think maybe not so much a hack, some might call it a hack, but I think players or publishers are going to get a lot more creative with the ways that you are trying to shape the user experience. So, stuff like frequency caps. We talked about collaborating a lot more closely with networks to do things like ad quality controls and ad templates. And I feel like we're going to get a lot more out of that in 2025 and hopefully beyond, because I think this is a new kind of arc that everyone's on. We've gone through kind of the Google bidding changes, ashes and all of that. And I think now it's about kind of rebuilding, right? And taking it in a different direction.
I'm surprised also I heard a lot about subscriptions, which you wouldn't expect because it was like, oh, it's difficult. And, if you're subscribing, then maybe you're not going to look at the ads. I mean, it's one or the other. It's cannibalizing. It can just get messy because you can't split it that clearly. Subscriptions, I mean, you don't do them at Tripledot. You're totally IAA, but there is this level of mixing up the models. Is that one of the things you're seeing, hearing, or would even advise?
I think it depends on the type of games that you are building. So I think maybe for kind of like very mature games, right? Like those that you've had for a couple of years already that have a very well-founded user base, maybe you can do it, but I wouldn't expect it to kind of like move the needle. So if we're thinking about what's going to really supercharge or drive your growth this year, and you are kind of building a new game and you're thinking, what are the principles of those games and do you want to put in subscriptions? Then I think that works, right? So I think the first and foremost idea is kind of like, what type of games, if you were building games, do you want to build that would lend itself best to a subscription model where you could still have ads? Because like you said, like a subscription model could mean that you offer no ads package. But that means that for everyone else who doesn't subscribe, which is the majority of your users, you would still have ads. And it's about how you blend the game to incentivize different types of player behavior.
So that leads us to something that might be a trend in 2025. I'm not an expert in Admon like you, but I would put some money on it, which is thinking more in tiers is what I'm hearing. It's just like the small, medium, large pricing, right? And so we're going to be thinking about more mixes. I had someone from Tripledot on my panel as well, and it was like, rewards as well, rewarded platforms. They have to be looking at their users differently and all needs to be adapting, segmenting. Where are you on segmentation and Admon, putting those two together? So it's like, yes, it is the right approach for the right user to make the right amount of money.
Yeah, look, I think segmentation is part of the bread and butter, right? Like, I think even if you are thinking, when I started in Admon and those who came kind of like have been in the industry even before me, you always think about segmentation because you wouldn't put, for instance, the same floor price for all geos. So you would put a higher floor price for US or maybe what you would consider the tier one English speaking countries where prices are higher, right? So there is segmentation wherever you think about it. I guess the maybe like more nuanced way of thinking about it is what types of segmentation, right? So of course, like from the user acquisition side, you think about different campaign types because they bring in different types of users. You might think about how old the user is, meaning how long they've played the game for, whether they are a fresh install or they're like an existing quite kind of like long established loyal user, right? So that's another way to kind of like segment. And I guess, we spend a lot of our time talking about data on the last time we had a conversation. And I think the question is, as you get more of these data points, are the segments that you're creating out of these data points actually meaningful? Or do they end up just creating a lot more complexity? Because what you don't want is creating all of these segments, not getting an ARPDAU uplift, but having to maintain them, right? And so ultimately, whatever it is we choose to create segments on, we're always doing it. We're always trying to find new ways to do it. But it's about, serving, right? Like that North Star of just being able to grow revenue in a sustainable way.
The value of an engaged player is just out of this world. It's all I'm hearing about. We need to think of new metrics to talk about levels of engagement because different values. So we need new metrics, maybe new blended metrics. It's going to be an interesting year for data-driven thinking. A lot of models I think we're going to chuck in the bin, as they say in England, and others we're going to modify. I mean, you're thinking in that direction. Can you give some guidance or some thinking around how we're going to actually measure the success of AdMon in 2025?
Yeah, look, like there is only one real North Star, right? Which is ARPDAU. Of course, like you can think of it as cumulative revenue if you're looking at it from the UA side. But that is, at the end of the day, that's it, right? I guess if you're thinking about what components would make up that, traditionally you've always thought just about CPMs or price and like impressions, right? Which is your quantity. I guess now in 2025, what is perhaps going to become more and more important are things like retention, things like engagement. And I suppose traditionally, your AdMon managers have only ever focused on the CPM part of the equation or how it influences impressions, right? That kind of like dynamic relationship that they have. But right now, I think AdMon managers, some people at this conference have also spoken about the fact that you need to look at things in a more holistic way. You almost need to be a bit like a product manager of some of the games because you need to look at how your ads, either the ad quality, the frequency, all of these factors, the impact that would have on retention profiles, on engagement profiles. And I think that's not an easy leap to make, or you're going to have to start from scratch again. But it is going to inform how you evaluate kind of like ARPDAU uplifts and the success that comes from in 2025. And I think, as we said, like this new journey, this new arc that we are on from now on.
I like that, sort of like the hero's arc. We're going to have a happy end. We're going to have a happy end at the end. I've also been listening a lot to really changing just the perspective, not even changing the formula, just changing, for example, what you think of as a payback period, having a little bit more patience. I was talking to one guy, he's like, we just changed it a bit and we saw that we gave it a bit more time and we saw these massive returns. I mean, it was a 10x increase in revenue. That's not small. So it's almost as if the strategy is right. Just give it a little more time to work. Not necessarily burning the cash, but just letting it hit some sort of dynamic. What do you make of that?
I think that's probably fair, right? I think we all came out of like a lot of the kind of success stories we heard of like supercharged growth in the sense of, hitting in very small payback windows either come from games that, dominated the market, right? Like they blitzed the market. Or they came from kind of like a period of time. So I'm thinking like COVID, where it was very easy because like engagement numbers were very high and, I guess like advertisers, e-commerce kind of advertisers were kind of going through the roof, right? I think that's changed a little. And, the way that people are behaving via the games has changed, right? Because they're not I guess, stuck at home all the time as they were during that era. And so what that means is that if we keep the kind of goals, I suppose, the same, or you keep kind of, your payback windows exactly the same, then you're not responding, I guess, to the environment that we are now finding ourselves in, right? And I think that has kind of secondary implications because, UA and monetization at the end of the day are two sides of the same coin. So if from the monetization point of view, we're saying that, it's stable, it's strong, it's still growing, it's just not at the kind of hypersonic growth that it was, then we need to find that symbiotic relationship where UA is also kind of like changing the way that they are looking at the goals and how they should serve those goals. And I think, at least for each publisher, that sweet spot is different. But for each publisher who does this, right, it means that you're more likely to get kind of sustainable results and growing results. Because again, like, I think more than anything, kind of sustainable growth is what everyone is looking for, rather than just kind of like volatile, high periods of high growth and then periods of low. Because that's not good for the heart.
I love it. I love your analogies, Andrew. And I love the fact that you have such a balanced, calming way of discussing this. I knew it was a great idea when we said, let's do this. Let's meet again and do it again. And you have shared some great insights and above all, some great vibe as well. I mean, you have to be the one. You call me positive, but I think you're a match. You're a match by far. And you ironed your shirt. No, I'm just kidding. You did iron your shirt.
I did. So Mom, if you're watching this as well, I have also ironed this shirt.
Absolutely. Well, it's great to have you here. Great to have gotten you in, Andrew. It was well worth it. And hey, let's continue the conversation. You rock, Andrew. Honestly.
Thanks, Maggie. Thank you.
This show is all about how to do your job better, how to make an amazing game, how to market it, and you have a say. So if you have a story or know someone we need to shine a light on, then we would love to hear from you.
We want to hear from you. We want to reflect the reality of the mobile games market in all its wonderful complexity and strangeness. So if you have any suggestions for us, if you have any feedback for us, you can always get in touch. You can email us at podcast@pocketgamer.biz. You can find us on Twitter @PGBiz, and you can reach out to us through the pocketgamer.biz website. If you're interested in listening to all of our podcasts, you can find them at pocketgamer.biz/podcast, and we would love to hear your thoughts on future shows.
And we've got you covered on all the major platforms, so subscribe to the audio podcast, as Brian said. Look for us on YouTube. If you want to read it, hey, you can do that too, because we have a companion post for you as well on the pocketgamer.biz website.
Tune in again for the next edition of the pocketgamer.biz podcast, and we look forward to speaking to you in the near future. Until then, I'm Brian Baglow.
I'm Peggy Ann Saltz, and that's a wrap until next week.